Hello, listeners. Today is January 13th, and this is Voice Over Work, an audiobook sampler. Where do you listen? This episode is the audiobook preview to Nick Trenton's book, Wait, I Need to Overthink. This insightful guide helps you break free from the cycle of endless rumination, understand your internal narrative, and develop the tools to cultivate a calmer, more intentional mind. In this book, you'll learn how to identify and challenge negative thought patterns, find clarity amidst chaos, and ultimately reclaim your peace. The audiobook's available on Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. And for more information about Nick Trenton and his work, you can visit bit.ly/Nick Trenton. Thanks for joining us today, and this is the audiobook preview of Nick Trenton's book, Wait, I Need to Overthink.
Most of us feel anxious about things now and again, and it's not unusual to get carried away with overthinking when it comes to big life decisions or challenging situations. But if you've picked up this book, there's a strong chance that your anxiety goes way beyond this. Chronic and habitual overthinking can damage relationships, interfere with work, and utterly exhaust you in the process. The good news is that this is not something you're doomed to live with forever. Overthinking is a learned behavior, and that means it can be unlearned. In the chapters that follow, we'll be cutting through the angst and chaos and finding the clarity, courage, and compassion needed to live life without undue worry and stress. Whether you struggle with self-regulation now and again, or are dealing with more entrenched thought patterns, the simple and effective approaches covered in this book will help you take back control. When your mind is racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour, it can be hard to know what to do with yourself or where to start. Fortunately for us, the first step is the easiest. All that's required is for us to become aware. What are you feeling? Emotions. Data, not directives. Our first task is to understand our experience, name it, and learn to understand exactly how it functions. You may think, I feel anxious, but what does that word actually mean? If you're an anxious overthinker, anxiety may feel like a messy mix of all of the following: overwhelmed, on edge, irritated and annoyed, nervous, strung out, scared, suspicious, angry, confused, worried, apprehensive, crazy, terrified, uncertain, uncomfortable, weird, exhausted, uneasy. In the moment you're feeling all this, however, these convenient labels don't come to you in a neat bullet point list. They arrive, all at once, in a great tangled mess. And layered on top of that mess are yet more feelings. You're annoyed with yourself, maybe, or disappointed and concerned about how anxious you feel. You're worried about your nervousness. You're overwhelmed with your irritation. You're annoyed at how weird it all feels. On and on it goes. If you've been battling anxiety for a long time, it may seem completely obvious that the only thing you want is not to be anxious anymore. The thought of turning around to face these awful feelings seems insane. Isn't that the point, to feel better? The irony, though, is that when you spend a lot of time desperately trying to run away from feelings, you end up knowing very little about what they are and how they work. You may be emotional without being emotionally intelligent. If you label a certain emotion bad or unacceptable, then you immediately stop yourself from processing or understanding it. Judging, invalidating, ignoring, or repressing emotions doesn't make them go away. In fact, wrestling and struggling against negative emotions only makes things worse, because the wrestling and struggling are themselves negative emotions. Now, this isn't the brain teaser that it appears to be on the surface. What's required is that we reframe the way we think of our emotions entirely. The old view, that sees some emotions as good and some as bad, and in need of fixing as fast as possible, is exactly the kind of mindset that generates more resistance, avoidance, and denial. But what happens when we stop judging what we feel and just feel it? What happens when we stop trying to force or control a situation and instead try to be curious about it and understand it? How would it change things to imagine that difficult emotions are not enemies, but useful messengers?
And that's the audiobook preview for Nick Trenton's book, Wait, I Need to Overthink. Remember, chronic overthinking can significantly impact our lives, but it's not an insurmountable challenge. By cultivating self-awareness, developing healthy coping mechanisms, and challenging our negative thought patterns, we can break free from the cycle of overthinking and find greater peace and clarity. For more insights from Nick Trenton, be sure to check out Wait, I Need to Overthink. Available on Amazon and the audiobook on Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. For more information about Nick Trenton and his work, visit bit.ly/Nick Trenton. Thanks for listening to this episode from VoiceOver Work. Join us Friday for the chapter-by-chapter preview of this very same book.